Hello everyone, it is Wednesday, and that means it's time for my weekly Crack Pack video. Right now we're opening up Aether Revolt packs because that's the most recent limited format. I'll open up a pack of Aether Revolt, which we have right here, and I'll open this pack up. I'll talk about what I would first pick. I talk about each and every card in the pack and sort of how I view it in this format right now. That of course could change. Right now we're just in the early stages of the format, but we're going to go ahead and open this pack and see what we have in this particular pack. Okay. Get that wrapper out of the way. All right, so our first common is Precise Strike, which is an okay combat trick. You basically never want to first pick combat tricks, though. Occasionally there's like a really good combat trick, like Coat with Venom back in Khans of Tarkir, but this isn't one of those. It's a fine combat trick, and you'll play it if you're an aggressive deck, but it's not even one you really, really want to get in an aggressive deck. You'd rather have Built to Smash or things like that. All right, our next common, though, is Aether Swooper. The Swooper is a very good common. It's one of the part of the Aether cycle. I think they're either the first or second best. It's either Aether Chaser, which is the red one, or Aether Swooper. They all produce energy, and then when they attack, you can pay 2 energy to make a servo, and that just works really, really well for a number of reasons. First of all, it works well with energy strategies, which exist, and they work really well with artifact strategies because of the fact that they give you servos who can help you improvise, who can help you pump up other creatures because you control artifacts and things like that. Next, we have Alley Evasion, another spell that's a combat trick, but this one has a little more going for it. It's a decent combat trick. 1 mana for +1/+2 isn't terrible, and you can also use it to bounce things to your hand. So you can use it to save a creature from removal. You can even use it to sort of set up Revolt if you want to, which sometimes is nice. Just bouncing a creature that has an enter the battlefield triggered ability and not a Revolt ability is also quite good as well. But you don't want to be taking that combat trick early. Either right now, Aether Swooper is definitely the best card in this pack. Next, we have Night Market Aeronaut, kind of a very mediocre black card that you usually only play if you're a little short on playables. You have to hit Revolt for it to be good, and it's not always guaranteed you're going to. And the cards with Revolt that are good are the ones that are like okay at least if you cast them, but a 4-mana 2/2 flyer is not that. And so I don't usually play this card, but sometimes, it makes it into the deck. We have another member of the Aether cycle, Aether Herder, not quite as good as the Swooper, though. Just does the same thing, except it's bigger and costs more mana and doesn't have flying. Flying's a big deal for the Swooper. I left that out when I talked about it. What it means is that if you have like a constant way to produce energy, you can keep attacking and keep making servos in a way that the ground creatures of that cycle just can't do. Next, we have Fen Hauler as our next common. The Hauler is just a big creature with Improvise. We had it actually, I think, in last week's pack too. Basically, you'll play it in a black deck if you have a lot of artifacts in it, black-red or blue-black probably. And it's a fine card to have there. It's just a big monster. Can't be blocked by artifacts. Comes up occasionally. It's not as good as some of the cards with Improvise that common or uncommon in other colors, like the Bastion Inventor guy with Hexproof. Our next common is Destructive Tempering. For 3 mana, you get sort of an interesting card. It lets you destroy an artifact, or it lets you do the Magmatic Chasm thing and make creatures without flying unable to block. And it's kind of nice to have because it's sort of like you get 2 sideboard cards with 1 card. So I don't hate picking this card up if I'm in a red deck. In fact, if things go exactly the way I want them to, it means I have one of them in my sideboard in any red deck I make because it's good against so many different decks. But it isn't an instant. It's a sorcery, and destroying artifacts at sorcery speed is worse than a lot of the artifact removal in this format. But it's an okay card. Again, you don't want to be first picking it. It's basically just a sideboard card. Next, we have Filigree Crawler, who's all right if you end up in like a black-red sacrificey deck, but definitely not worth first picking. You can even pick these up super late if you're in that deck because no one else wants it. Next, we have Augmenting Automaton, which is a card that I like a lot. It reminds me a lot of Sludge Crawler from Zendikar block. I don't remember which set off the top of my head, the Battle for Zendikar block, in that it's a colorless creature that costs 1 mana, and then you can pump it if you have enough mana. And it's not only that it does that, not only that it can turn into this huge creature the later the game goes on, it's also that it helps with Improvise. At only 1 mana, as you can see here, at only 1 mana, it's a very good deal because you have the Automaton in play very early and ready to help you improvise as soon as possible. Another card that's good because of Improvise, and probably wouldn't be good if it weren't for Improvise, is Implement of Combustion. Another 1 mana artifact. It's good because it cycles through your library, which is nice too, but you really only play this if you have an Improvise deck. You probably don't play it in any other red deck unless you're really improvising. All right, well now we're moving to our uncommons. After our commons, our best common, I would say, was certainly Aether Swooper. I think that's right now what we're going to be picking out of this pack. But we have a fellow flying blue creature that costs 2 mana that's probably going to push it out of the way, and that is Skyship Plunderer. A 2 mana, 2/1 flyer, nice aggressive cost. On top of that, anytime it deals combat damage, you get to choose one permanent that has counters on it, or players, so it counts energy, and you get to add another counter to that player or permanent, and that's a very real effect, especially in blue. Blue has a lot of cards with energy, and that's just a very nice effect. It also works with +1/+1 counters, but blue isn't loaded with those. We have another blue card as our next uncommon, and that is Illusionist Stratagem. Now, this is a pretty good little card that you want, especially in the blue-white deck or blue-green. Any deck that has a lot of Revolt or Into the Battlefield triggers, because you can abuse them. And it's nice that it replaces itself, and you can also just use it to dodge removal, all of which is very relevant. It's, again, not what you want to be first picking. We're still on the Skyship Plunderer right now, and I would even take Aether Swooper before the Stratagem, but I'm just sort of describing to you, why the Stratagem can be good, and I would play it in certain decks. Next, we have Barricade Breaker, a big artifact with Improvise, a 7 mana 7/5, but you can usually play him on like turn 5 if your Improvise deck got there, and that makes him quite good. That said, I still think I go with Skyship Plunderer because the floor of the Plunderer is a lot higher than it is of the Barricade Breaker. The Breaker just, if you don't end up in an artifact-heavy deck, you can't play it. And the Plunderer you can play in any blue deck. However, our rare is going to be our first pick in this one because we got Free Jam Regent. For 6 mana, we have a 4/4 flyer with sort of a pseudo fire-breathing ability, 1 in a red to get +2/+0. And it has Improvise, so you can usually play it at least on turn 5. We have cards just in this pack can help us do it, including our Implement. And so Free Jam Regent is definitely the pick in this pack, with Skyship Plunderer and then Aether Swooper. Those are my top 3 in this pack. But the Regent is a great bomb. I've drafted it and had it be really good for me, and I'm sure lots of you have as well, because it's just an incredible bomb in the format. If it didn't have Improvise, it would already be good, but with Improvise, it's crazy. So that does it for this week's Crack-a-Pack video. Remember that if you want to enter to win all the cards that I open in the Crack-a-Pack videos this month, you can enter into a drawing to win all 4 of the packs, all the cards in them at the end of the month. You can enter in any one of these Crack-a-Pack videos, but you can only enter once. So I'll be keeping track of who's already entered and who hasn't. But make sure you enter if you haven't already, because there's really no reason not to, because you get, free stuff. So that does it for this week's video. Thanks for watching. Also a reminder that my content is sponsored in part by 5colorcombo.com. You can head over there to their store and use my discount code NITSAHONE5 in order to get a 5% discount. They also have a great app for practicing drafting Aether Revolt, actually, and you can download that there as well. And it's a good way to practice drafting if you're like on a bus or something and can't actually like fire up Magic Online. So that does it for this week's video. I'll see you for next week's Crack-a-Pack.